Hi, I'd like to share with you my upcoming class, HCT-DIA, where we will be addressing our diaphragms, particularly the respiratory diaphragm and how it balances the tentorium and the pelvic floor. And then we are going to take a dive. We are going to take a dive so deep into our pelvic floor, and some of us may discover that the pelvic floor below the diaphragm, respiratory diaphragm, this is our forbidden territory. And this is why it's so important to enter into this ground, because it is holding so much guilt and shame. It also holds sometimes disgust, fear, and sadness. And this is such a great adventure because some of us will be able to access an organ of sexuality or excretion. For example, a woman suddenly discovers that her womb is holding so much grief and sorrow, was never aware of it, but as she looks deeper, she understands that the consciousness of her womb itself is still grieving the loss of a child or the violation of an abortion. And these things we disconnect ourselves, and until we enter these grounds, we cannot access this. There are so many organs that we have denied and felt ashamed of. Therefore, we are not in relationship to them, and therefore they are suffering. There was a woman that came to me, and this is a way that we can use this work. Her doctor told her that within 1 year, if she didn't restore and regenerate her sexual organs, he was going to do a hysterectomy on her. And when we went inside, we went back into a trauma when her father was dying. And if you could imagine, his last words to her were, "I love you, honey, be a good girl." Be a good girl in her mind in those days meant to her that she was not allowed to be sexual. And in that moment, if you can imagine, she disconnected and she disconnected from her sensation, her connection to her sexuality, her femininity, and she lived her whole life without feeling comfortable in her own body as a woman. So what we were able to do is to be able to have her speak to her father, to be able to clarify what he truly meant about be a good girl, to be loving, kind, and compassionate, not to be asexual, not to be ashamed. So in this, she could feel that she was able to turn on the lights of her sexuality, to be able to feel again, to be able to feel the flow. It is interesting how for eons of time we have been taught through our culture, through religions, even through science, to be ashamed of our lower body and our functions, our animal functions, so to speak. Even the word pudental, the pudental artery and veins, when you translate that, it means shame. The pudental arteries feed the body, the lower pelvic floor, all the blood that nurtures it, that creates erection and orgasm. And the nerve connects to the genitals and to the anus, and it creates movement and sensation. And even science has labeled that function as shameful. It runs so deep in our culture, in our lives, that in my heart, I feel it's time that we re-enter and reassess truly what the pelvic floor is. When we feel into our sexuality, the intelligence and the love that it inherently holds to create a child. This is the sacredness. And yet, we hold our sexuality in fear and shame. This is an opportunity to change this and to know that this is not just a class for women. This is a class for men as well, because they too have suffered sexual shaming, sexual violation, circumcision, yes, women, C-section, episiotomy. These again are violations, unnecessary violations. Because if we had a better relationship with our bodies, we would know how to birth a child perfectly, how to create a child perfectly. So men are so welcome to be able to join together and to heal those deeper issues that have taken away our innocence. And our intention is to remember our sacredness and our innocence, and to hold our pelvic floor in honor and respect. So join me. And remember that if you feel, because these are such intimate and sensitive issues, when we are online, we have breakout rooms where you are alone with your partner. You have full privacy and you know who your TA will be. They have permission to come in and to join you, to support you in more difficult times. So there is deep respect and a way that we can hold that sense of safety